Greetings, everyone. My name is Dr. Lee Smith, Dean of Academic Affairs at University of the Potomac. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to today's panel discussion, The Influence of Big Data and Artificial Intelligence on the Organizational Landscape. Today's discussion will examine the impact that artificial intelligence has on big data and on the organizational decisions derived from its influence. The panel will also address the pros and cons of artificial intelligence and whether decision-making can primarily be based on big data. I'll be serving as moderator today, and we will also have question opportunities in the chat room for you to ask your specific questions to the panel. For questions, please write them in the chat box. We have allocated that time near the end of the session to address all audience questions. We may not be able to get to all of the questions in time of this meeting. So at this time, I'm going to ask all guests to put their devices on mute, if you can. If everyone could put their devices on mute, and then we'll get on and introduce our special panel members. Professor Ruben Fanegra. Professor Fanegra is a PhD candidate in the School of Engineering at the Metropolitan Technological Institute and a full-time researcher at the Pascal Bravo University Institution in Medellin, Colombia. His research includes studies in advanced machine learning models, including the detection of emotional human states for the development of human-computer interfaces, the use of artificial intelligence for mobile robotics, and the development of artificial intelligence based tools for the aid in the diagnostics of breast cancer. Just absolutely fascinating work of Professor Fanegra. Greetings.
Greetings, Dr. Smith, and thank you very much for your introduction.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. Dr. Kamal Galati. Dr. Galati is a PhD and data analytics expert with 19 years of teaching experience and research in computer science and in information technology, working as associate professor at Amity University in Noida, India. Dr. Galati's area of interest are in big data, artificial intelligence, risk analysis, and marketing analytics. He has published 30 research papers and has 11 patents accepted in the field of artificial intelligence and data science. Greetings, Dr. Galati. How are you? So,
good morning, Lee Smith. Thank you.
Good to see you. And last but surely not least, Dr. Shakir Ullah. Dr. Ullah is a PhD in finance. He is an assistant professor of finance at the University of Maryland Global Campus and a dissertation chair at the California Intercontinental University. He's a former dissertation chair at Georgetown University, professor of finance at Stratford University and the University of Southampton in the United Kingdom. And Dr. Ullah has numerous publications in Financial Times top 20 journals. Hello, Dr. Ullah, how are you doing?
Good morning and greetings to you, Dr. Smith, and greetings to everybody. It's an honor to be here.
Fantastic. I think I will get started with our questions. Now, the first question I'm going to pose to Dr. Galati, before we get too bogged down in the details, how do we define artificial intelligence and its relation to big data?
Yeah, sure. Before I go with exactly the answer, I just want to give the basic things of an AI. if we go into much into a deeper kind of thing, AI is basically, we say like that when you transform your idea into substance. Like if we go for if we talk about the big data, I'm already working, as Dr. Smith has already given my introduction. I have lot of research paper, and I see that nothing has been. If we go into deeper in that, nothing has been. We cannot change into that kind of thing. Like big data is working for an data which is an structured kind of data, unstructured data, semi-structured data. If I go into much more beyond like that, earlier time when we used to have, the data is getting generated as a pace of 100 pace. And if we see like that, the demand of a big data right now in 2019, it was a $700 million, but it will expected to grow around $4,800 million by 2024. So big data is actually is having a good pace in the market. And basically, if we go for an AI basically says that it's a true reflection of a technology advancement. Not only those things, if we talk about big data basically means like that we are having a vital information, extracting the information you need. And there is nothing in this world we do with the big data. Every problem, there is a solution, and AI works on that thing. You need to understand the problem, what is the solution, and actually we work on that thing and we solve and we define the ways how we overcome on that. And AI, in a very nutshell, let me talk about AI much more. AI basically says that it's on the basis on the decision based on a data and set of algorithm, set of statistical, set of mathematicals, and all together. Earlier we used to say that data has been transformed to information, and information is transformed through a knowledge, and knowledge is basically we're looking for a decision. So why don't we make the things easy? Why don't we make the things into kind of an machinery kind of things where we can work all together to make our things in a much more faster way, easy manner. So both the things, without the data, we are knowing. And now there is a gig in the market. Data is an oil which has been introduced, everything. And after this COVID, the pandemic, entire world, I think it has been increased around 60 to 65% of the data. So, and data and the like a big data, if we say, or if we say about AI, both are equally important to do the things.
Okay.
Just to add to that
Please. Yeah.
point of view, I would say like the artificial intelligence and big data, they are inseparable. There is a cyclical relationship between the two. What I mean by that is that we had this significant amount of data even before we realized that there was big data, before we even coined the term big data. And then when we realized that there was big data, we needed some mechanism because it was impossible for the human brain, for the human capacity to analyze that data. So we needed this artificial intelligence machines and systems. And once we have those systems, we actually need the big data for the systems to work. So the artificial intelligence systems will not work if it is not fed with the big data. And once it has that big data, it becomes smarter. And when that happens, then it is like, it is able to analyze more big data. So then like, as it is growing and we're moving forward, the artificial intelligence systems are becoming smarter enough that the big data we have today is becoming small data for the systems, because that is the pace of the progress in this area.
I would like to add a point,
Please.
something there.
Yeah.
It is related with the definition of artificial intelligence. As Dr. Ayula said, they are inseparable. Because artificial intelligence, it is defined as the knowledge that we create from data. If there is no data, there is no artificial intelligence we can create from them. So they are inseparable. And the artificial intelligence or the algorithms that we use for creating this knowledge are the base for the estimations and of the benefits and the risk or profits made based on observations. So I think that they are both meant to be.
Okay, and Professor Finnegar, I'm gonna stay with you on this point, because now I've been hearing the term artificial intelligence for at least the last 15 years, and it may be longer in terms of its inception. By now, we all have experienced some form of artificial intelligence in our day-to-day lives. But I guess my question is that it? Is that it? Have we seen the best that artificial intelligence can deliver? Or is there more to come beyond the gadgetry?
Yes, Dr. Smith. The first thing I have to say is that we interact with artificial intelligence in one way or another. Even if we don't know that we're interacting with artificial intelligence, most of the recent applications in the world include some sort of artificial intelligence. Uh, but we, I don't think we have seen everything we have to see from artificial intelligence. I mean, uh, as we are moving forward, the advance of this area, there are many applications in which we are applying a more advanced sort of artificial intelligence. So we can see, for example, nowadays that we can use artificial intelligence in agriculture, in robotics, in medicine, in for example, the detection of or the creation of marketing strategies, in the decision making of the organizations. So we are seeing this number of applications growing and growing and growing as time goes by. So we have definitely not seen the best potential of artificial intelligence. Maybe we take some decades, even decades, to see the best performance of it. Um,
Well, I know that you have done so much work, and you continue to study in how artificial intelligence can impact your field in healthcare. So I guess I would expect no less from you than to answer it in terms of additional opportunities. I do want to remind everyone that if you're not speaking, to keep your devices on mute. So we're getting a little bit of background noise. And also, just a reminder, and I'll do this a couple of times during today's session, that if you do have questions, please put them in the chat room. My co-moderator, Professor Sarah Humble, is on the line too, and she'll be monitoring the chat room questions. And then at the end of the session, we will retrieve those questions and present them to the panel as well. So thank you. Thank you for that. Um, Dr. Ula, what changes and or shifts have you seen in the organizational decision-making process, given the prominent insertion then of big data on the business landscape? Because I'll tell you, I grew up in a time where we made decisions by walking around and checking out how things were working. Now, based on what you're telling me, if we're relying on big data, how has that changed the organization?
That's a very fantastic question, and a question that was definitely expected. So first of all, I would like just to add to Professor Fanegra's discussion, and I would agree that what we see in the artificial intelligence and big data is just the tip of the iceberg. We haven't seen, there is a discussion that we hear about the singularity, the super intelligence, uh, and a lot of people say that it's like far from reality. But few years back, there were lots of things that we thought were far from reality, but we see them now. So those things are gonna take place in the future. Now coming to the question, business decision making and artificial intelligence. As you said, I mean, like you have lots of experience in administration, in academic administration, and people used to and people still use that traditional method of decision making, and it takes a lot of time, primarily because people are over occupied to come together and take those key decisions. And secondly, there are too many decision makers. It's very hard to bring them together for the meeting and to take the decisions. And most importantly, those decisions take and need lots of data from different sources, from archives, from the meeting records, from the current market trends and everything. And it is quite hard to bring that data together. And even if we bring that data, it's very hard to analyze that data. And that is where we need, and we're using the artificial intelligence system. What they actually do for us is the artificial intelligence system is analyzing that huge pool of data that would otherwise be impossible for the human beings to analyze properly. So it is doing all that for us. And it is like, filling those loopholes that we had in business decision making that we had previously, and were affecting our profitability and productivity, of course. So these complex machines are helping us in that area. Furthermore, there are different types of decisions. Like, there are some that need like a lot of human discussion, and that have to be taken by the human beings. But there are decisions that are well structured in most cases, and may simply need like the data analysis in a good preview of what has happened and what decision can you take now. Those decisions have been automated. And these are not simple things, like very complex things. If we take the Uber's dynamic pricing example, for example, like, earlier, if we would take a pricing decision, we would like, do all those calculations, taking the supply and demand together and calculating the price elasticity of demand. And then we would say, like, if we increase the price, what would happen to the demand and what would happen to the profitability? All that work is now being done by the system itself. So like, if a demand increases in an area, the system automatically decides to increase the price. And when that price is increased, it also increases the supply of the Uber drivers to that particular area. So all that decision that would otherwise take like, weeks or months to be taken, it is automatically taken by the system within seconds. So that is the impact that we have seen in the industry. Further than that, I mean, like, we have seen, the pricing and risk classification and in insurance industry. All those are taken automatically. Like, if the insurance company is increasing the premium rates for a particular area, there are a number of variables that are going into it. For example, there might be the system is automatically analyzing the accidents data from that particular area. So, like, you don't need to be humanly involved in that decision. The data is coming all automatically from the authorities, and your system is taking the decision. So automatically, like, whether the manager knowing the system takes the decision that the premium should be increased or maybe reduced for that particular area. We also have, like, the credit decisions, so we can calculate, we can find the credit worthiness of the customers, of the clients' potential borrowers. So those decisions are taken, like taking all that information into consideration. And product demand can be calculated from the likes that are coming on your product, on your company, the shares, the people that you share your product on social media. You can calculate the demand from there. The comments, so you can also have the sentiment analysis, whether people like your product, they're enthusiastic about it in their comments, or they don't like it, and stuff like that. We have the robo bosses, as I said. So the robot, the machine is actually your boss, and it's telling you what to do. We have, like, one of the very good example that I would like to cite here, because I'm located in Pakistan right now, and the COVID-19 situation. You may know that the WHO chief has praised Pakistan for how the country handled the coronavirus pandemic. And the reason for that was the smart lockdown, which was as a result of this artificial intelligence systems being employed. So what they did is that, they identified the hotspots, and that were based on the real-time data that were coming in. So if you had that hotspot, they would close that down. They didn't close all the economy. So the economy was, it was closed, not not completely open, but not completely closed. So that was going on. And despite of this, the country being economically quite weak, we didn't have much resources. We were able to handle the pandemic much more, strategically and in a better way. So yes, I would say in finance field, fintech is a whole new area. It's a new industry that is opened up.
That's a very interesting point. And with reference to using the pandemic as an example, in terms how artificial intelligence provided you a strategic response to address some of the situations. Any follow-up, Dr. Galati? Or Professor Fernandez? Dr. Galati?
Yeah, I have. Yes, I just want to add what Dr. Ulay started. Just to add what he has already said it. I just want to say that AI, not only it is making for a decision kind of making, but it is also making for a predictive and a predictive analytics, and it is used for a real-time operational management. Not only those things, it is used for a risk management on also a customer inside it. Let me give you a lively example what has happened during this COVID, the pandemic. Nobody has thought that the major problem with the entire world, we were having like how to maintain the social distancing. So like AI has made one application which is known as RoboDog. Singapore and US, I think both of the countries are using very well, and it's working like a fantastic kind of things. If the two persons are sitting, they are not maintaining a 1 meter distance, so it clicks the pictures and it's sent to the police cops, and accordingly they have the fine depending on the country to country. So basically, if we go into much more deeper, AI is being much used in any area, and they have not left with any kind of application. Like I can give you many more example about the medicine. Medicine, I think, I don't know whether when I was a kid, I was very scared to have an vaccine or or kind of an injection which basically having a pain kind of thing. Now AI has made AI pills. If you eat that pill, you don't have a pain. Not only those things, if you go into much more beyond that thing, like earlier time when we used to we right now, I should not say that we should have a COVID kind of things, but yes, in the coming times, it might be happen kind of thing, or you're having a throat infection kind of thing. So basically, you need to take an medicines for a 3 days or a 5 days. You need to go for a course. Let's say if you skip for a second day or a fourth day, then what will happen? You have to start from beginning, or might be you do not have that kind of thing. So why don't we have a one pill once we eat, and automatically it goes to our body, and after certain 24 hours time, whatever the required medicine is required, it will take internally. So that kind of an AI has already come with that thing. So AI is much more beyond that thing. AI is working on not only and making a decision kind of things, it is much kind of thing. If you go for an sports kind of things, we have seen like that the players right now, if they don't perform well, how they can see what are the faults they are having. Not only faults, like what kind of an mistake they have done. So basically AI captures that images. We have a very common in the Python, the programming. I think those who are from the programming, they can understand what I'm trying to say. There is an concept known as CV, the computer vision. It try to capture everything, and it's monitor and that thing, and it's give that what are the problem that you're having. So AI is something like that. It is not only for decision, it is to retrieve, not only retrieve whatever the problems we are having, whatever the issues we are having, how we can overcome those things.
Thank you. I'm gonna stay on this for a minute because it sounds like that we are demonstrating the praises of artificial intelligence and big data, and I appreciate that. But I do want to talk about a few of the potential risks. Clearly, The enterprise of big data allows for organizations to make structured product and service decisions based on vast amounts of data. Yet, the more data assembled also means the more expensive it is to maintain and the more difficult it becomes to protect. So, for example, in 2013, Yahoo, reported by Verizon Communications, disclosed an attack that affected all 3 billion of Yahoo's users' accounts because of the big data assembled. In 2019, First American Financial Corp was hacked, exposing 885 million records, including online bank transactions and social security numbers. So the bottom line is, I get the advantages of big data, but is it worth the risk? Dr. Ulo, you want to start with that?
Sure. I mean, this is a concern that everybody has, and it's there. It was there, and it's going to be there. Like, just imagine, even if we don't have big data, even if we have small data, there are still chances of theft and fraud and stuff like that. I do agree that the risk increases with the big data. But there's a trade-off. Of course, big data lends itself to data security risk. There's not just the data security. There are lots of other concerns as well that I can talk about. But the thing is that there are artificially intelligent systems that actually are very good in detecting and preventing the frauds as well. So on the one hand, either we say that, okay, big data is posing this risk and we should just discard it. On the other hand, we say, well, this is big data. This is a treasure of knowledge and information, okay? And we need to protect it. And there comes the role of the artificial intelligence systems that are there to actually protect the data. We have lots of systems that, in the credit card, like, when you swipe your credit card from another country, you automatically get a text message, and that there's a possible fraudulent activity on your credit card. Like, how do they know? It's the system responding. They block your transaction. They don't approve it because there's the artificial intelligence system in the back. So I would agree, there's a risk, and the risk is significant. I would also agree that artificial intelligence systems can be manipulated by hackers. Also, like, they hack your system and they get the data out of your system. But the AI system can prevent it. On the other hand, the artificial intelligence system works on data. So if you feed it the wrong data, it will give you the wrong decision, right? And that can be a possible risk that we're facing. So there is a trade-off. So what should we do? I would agree, and I would say, like, big data and artificial intelligence is there. We can't get rid of this. It is there to stay, and we have to adopt to the risks that are involved. We have to find solutions to that. It's not going to anywhere, and we have to combat it.
Professor Fonagra, any thoughts from you on that? Because it's a pretty big risk. A CEO of Target lost his job as CEO specifically just because he couldn't protect his customer accounts, which really impacted their fourth quarter earnings a couple of years ago. So is it worth the risk, Professor Fonagra?
This is a very interesting question, and there is a wide discussion around it. For example, the main gap artificial intelligence has nowadays with humans is that artificial intelligence is not completely independent. As Professor Dula said, when we are feeding our artificial intelligence with wrong data, it is always going to take the wrong decisions. But it is always the intention of the people behind it. For example, if we are talking about people trying to hurt people, or people trying to damage people, or stole people data and information, uh, the artificial intelligence goal is trying to steal the data, is trying to take the data. But it is not fault of artificial intelligence. It is always fault of people developing that kind of artificial intelligence. This is a very important thing, because this is going to sound like a very futuristic or very sci-fi reality, in which artificial intelligence is going to take us all down and is going to control the world. This is artificial intelligence cannot do this nowadays. Maybe we don't know what's going to happen in the next decades, or then in the next years, but it is an important fact to recognize that artificial intelligence is not able to do that now. Uh, so when we talk about taking the risk, it is always going to be people trying to steal data, or trying to make a damage from data. But I think the risk works because of all the positive things we can do with all this data. As we mentioned previously, for example, with the pandemic, there are a lot of applications going on with using artificial intelligence, trying to developing tools for helping people trying to make a diagnosis, make a final decision, medical decision, trying to simulate the behavior of the genome information of the virus. There are artificial intelligence trying to predict the behavior, the behavior that is going to have the virus spreading. So this is not only in these applications. For example, now I'm working on the developing tools for diagnostic for the diagnosis of cancer, so of breast cancer specifically. So if we think that we can develop these tools, we can save a lot of lives. We can have a real contribution in which artificial intelligence is going to help us to improve our lifestyles, to improve the quality of life of people now. I didn't mention previously, but there exists a code of ethic for people developing artificial intelligence, in which we commit for developing applications in which we are contributing to society. But there are always going to be people trying to develop things for making any sort of damage. There is always going to be people trying to do that. This is a risk. This is obviously something that is going to exist always. There are also people trying to develop in security system for avoiding this happen. But I think the risk worth, because as I mentioned, there are a lot of things that we can make with this all this data. There are a lot of good things that we can make with all this data, and that is the most important thing. It is about the good things that we can develop with big data and artificial intelligence, and not about all the bad things that we can create with artificial intelligence and big data.
You mentioned earlier when you were starting, artificial intelligence is not independent, and that's a great segue for a question I do have for Dr. Galati. Uh, today, as the objective of this panel would insinuate, we have intentionally made the connection between artificial intelligence and big data. But can artificial intelligence serve as the means and the solution, or must it always be connected to a greater commonality of purpose, a tool to facilitate a business objective?
Yeah, of course it can do it. And I just want to give you a real life a case study, what is happening in the current scenario. I think most of us might be knowing, but I just want to rephrase that thing. That's a real time case study. What has happened right now, e-commerce industry. If we go for it, let's say if we go for an Amazon, Amazon, okay, Amazon. What has happened? A boyfriend was giving some order through an online shopping. He was selecting some garments, let's say for her, the girlfriend. Once he is adding into the cart, what has happened when he was giving the payment, he got an pop-up message that whatever the garments or the item you have selected might be, you may not like, might be. Now the question comes here, how this e-commerce Amazon knows about the insight. Although he has never done any shopping online, he has never owned the social networking. As we said that big data is basically holds data of the multiple servers or multiple kind of things. Now the question comes here, we should be very active to know that how these e-commerce industry or any Amazon knows about insight about it. And frankly speaking, the answer is very scary. We will be very scared about to know that it's not about a digital marketing, it's not about a social marketing. The answer is lies with us. What has happened, what has actually happened. It is something like that. This guy, when he was doing a shopping, he has given an add-on card to the girlfriend, and the add-on card girlfriend was doing some shopping earlier with Amazon something. And it was getting a mix and match. You can see like that we have machine learning, deep learning. What it does, it basically tried to take an insight of a person. And sometimes we feel that AI is very good for us, but at the end, what was the result of it? The result was that the girlfriend, the boyfriend, they broke. They say that the machine knows much better than you. As a boyfriend, you are staying with me, you don't know about me. So this is the this kind of an the technology is taking us our own things. Not only those things, as we see the advantage of an Amazon e-commerce, they were good. Basically, they don't want to have an delivery charges more on that. They don't want that a return item should be go. They are saving on logistics, but ultimately this kind of landing kind of thing. So we should be ready, like actually what we do, what we don't do. So certain kind of things are happening around the globe, and we don't know. And nowadays we have already seen like that. If we go for an IBM Watson, I should just want to quote, everybody knows IBM Watson, what it does. It basically taking an insight of us, what actually we are doing on the internet, what kind of an the communication we are doing, whether we like, whether we dislike, what kind of comment we do. The future may be very scary, but the future will be very open for everyone. So we should be ready, and we should be very cope up with these kind of a technology. Not only those things, let me take you much more beyond, like what is happening. Like I was giving an example of an Robocop, or there uh, there is an a very excellent technology which has been adopted by Amazon, that is known as key van. Key van is something like that, automation kind of warehouse. Ultimately, there might be some question which I'm reading here, that it can lose our job, and if the artificial takes our saying, what we will going to do as a human being. But actually it is not like that. We need to update and upgrade, so that basically artificial intelligence, a very nutshell, if we go into that, it's basically making us an ease of the user, and the user should free with all the things what as a human being is doing.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a fantastic discussion that we're having. And I just want to again remind our guests in the audience to continue to put your questions in the chat room. I think we're going to break on the hour and address those questions, because we are getting quite a few of them. I believe Professor Sarah Humble is monitoring those questions now. Am I correct, Professor Humble? We're
Yes,
getting quite a
I'm
few.
monitoring all the questions. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. So we'll come back to those questions shortly, because from what Professor Humble is telling me, there are some outstanding questions, and I'm sure everyone is in the audience is ready to address those, or will be quite soon. I'm going to shift gears just a little, but But I'm going to come back to the risk and ethics piece in a few minutes. But let's shift gears for a second. Dr. Ula, there are numerous examples of how machine learning has benefited the tech industry. We see that every day. In fact, today we've talked extensively about that. But can we expect similar success stories in the finance sector too? If so, how so?
Of course, I mean, like big data and artificial intelligence is primarily for businesses. So it is affecting and it is changing the business dynamics significantly. Coming specifically to the finance field, I mean, you have got this fintech, which is a whole new industry opening up. All these financial decisions, recommendations, and that is taking, artificial intelligence is taking that over. Now, one of my recommendations to the guests would be, if you are in the finance industry, get into fintech. That's the future. What do we have there? We have the robo advisors. Like previously, you had these human beings. You would call them. You would make appointments, and they would advise you on what to buy and what not to buy, and stuff like that. Now that is done by the machines. They give you the advices. You even have these robo traders. So they're doing all the trades for you. You just tell them what you want, what is your risk appetite, how much capital do you have, which kind of, which market would you like to get into, and then they just do the trades for you. And in most cases, they give you better return. Like, for example, one of the artificial intelligence systems that I know of, which is being used in the finance industry, that is the Kavod. And they calculate a chi-score for the portfolio. And it, according to research, the companies that picked up the top, assets that were recommended by the chi-score, they were giving about 23% return from 2012 onward, as compared to the S&P 500, which was about 13%. So that's a big jump if you look at that. The other systems that I can simply name here, like just a few, there are hundreds of different systems available. Symphony fintech, there is the Greeksoft, there is the U-Trade Solutions, there's the MetaTrader. These are the AlphaSense. These are the system that are providing you the automatic trading as well. You also have these personal finance advisors, artificially intelligent. So they are connected to your bank account, for example, and they are connected to your credit card, and then they advise you how you can save money on a personal level. So there are a number of systems. Casisto is one. There is Trim. Trim basically, actually, is the term says, it trims your expenses down. It gives you very smart recommendations that you are spending your money on these things which you may actually not, need, or probably your finances is not supporting that. So you may probably not like to buy that. There are systems for in finance, in particular, for credit customers evaluation. So, in addition to the credit score that we have today, these potential clients are evaluated on a number of different things, just by looking at their personal data, by looking at their bank accounts and their credit card information and transactions, in the area they live in, and all of these different factors are taken into consideration. So yes, of course, these are helping. One of the best example is Zest Finance, and it has been known that they have saved about 23% annually in credit losses to some companies. Underwrite.ai is another example that you may want to explore in that area, in the credit finance. I think that's it.
Okay. No, thank you. any other comments, Dr. Galati, Professor
Yeah,
Fanegra?
uh, Dr. Smith, I have some points to add what the Dr. Ullah was saying about the
Please,
finance
please do. And
AI.
I just want to remind everyone before Dr. Galati speaks, make sure that your devices are on mute, and we'll continue. Please go ahead, Dr. Galati.
Yeah, okay. I just want to start from a very basic terms of the finance. Nobody have thought around few years back that our phone number will be converted to a bank account number. Like if we say that a fintech, we have a Google Pay account with the phone number only. We don't have to share our details. The transfer of the money will be done in a very millisecond. So that's a one very small example which I want to do that AI has done based on that kind of thing. Second thing I just want to add on it, if we talk about JP Morgan, they have started with a very intelligent kind of an AI based system. They call it with the name as COIN. Basically, that is known as a contract intelligence. What exactly it does, it's having a natural language a processing system, which is based on the machine learning kind of thing. It's basically a processes different contracts. Earlier, it was taking a 360,000 labor hours, but now with the few hours, they're able to establish that contract and they're able to see that which contract we need to see that thing to proceed for a loan. So not only those things, if we see that if we right now I am based in India, as you said in my introduction. So to get a loan, from any bank, it takes less than an hour if the credential are good. If we have a CIBIL account here in India, which basically check for entire things whether that the customer is genuine or not. They do that thing. I can give you some other example on the finance, like we in the US only, like you are saying, Wells Fargo. So what they have done, they have based an AI driven chatbot through a Facebook Messenger platform, which can communicate with the user, provides with the assistant of the password and the accounts. Like you should be very secure, because two things are majorly involved in finance. One is your a transaction of the money, and once how much security we are getting. We should not be share our ID or password. It should not be traced by anybody. We can have it. And I think the private banks, I should be very openly, they are doing very fantastic kind of bank, fantastic kind of things are doing. If we see in India very well, HDFC Bank, they are doing, you will not see, they have made such a branches that they are 100% AI based. You just walk through that bank and your account will be opened within a fraction of a second, and you do not do anything. Nowadays, yes, obviously, we cannot move to the bank because of the COVID situation. But yes, you can open through your phone call or through the online kind of system. And it worked fantastically, and they have made 100% technology driven. So all these things, not only that they are doing that thing, the coming leverages, the coming kind of the finance with the AI, it will be much more beyond and much more effective kind of thing.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm going to get back to, based on what we're talking about with artificial intelligence, making decisions in the private sector, in the tech sector, in the healthcare sector. Shouldn't we be concerned a little bit, at least, when we as a society transfer our rights within the decision-making process over to artificial intelligence? A concern just a little bit, which by design is absent of emotion and intuition. Doesn't that play a role in decision-making? Isn't that why we managers and leaders, we all went through that academic learning process that we did, because we could make those calls in business? But now that we turn this over to artificial intelligence to some extent, is that enough? Or are there some risks to that? Are there some ethical concerns to that? And I'll open that up to the entire panel group. You want to start, Dr. Galati?
Yeah, well, there are certain risks, everything in this world. I will not talk about AI or a big data. Everything is having its pros and cons. If you go if you're going for extreme kind of things, everything involves risk. everything involves that, we should have these kind of involved are there. And yes, in the longer terms, we are giving everything to a machine to take a decision from us, so that kind of things are there, and we should be very, pertinent whether we should go that thing. But yes, hand holding kind of an practice, which as a human being who has given intelligence to a machine which works for us, we should be very, serious enough whether we should go for it. Like, for example, I can give you some example which we do in our daily life. Like, nowadays lot of chatbots are there which works fantastically like a human being, but we are not giving 100% to take decision making, certain kind of an high end level decision making which has been done by a top management. This should be controlled by a human being only. It should not be like that we should give everything to a person, like it should be done on that thing. Recently what had happened, the financial cops, we have seen there was an, news very well that 885 million records including an online bank transaction has been taken over by the bank. Social security number has been taken over. What we need to do, so the companies, I can give you some example like a Facebook. Everybody knows we are happy to do that, and again that, that data has been shared by the to some company to do the marketing or whatever it is. So, it has been standard has been already mentioning whenever we are creating some those kind of thing, there is an EULA, there is an end user license agreement. We should always go for it, like what is good to share or what is good not to share. But yes, ultimately, we are giving that thing, but as an user, we should be very openly kind of things, whether we should give that all the, all the facts and all the decision making thing. We should be very active that time, whether we allow those things or not.
Professor Fanegra, uh, there's a saying in business and in leadership. It's not a professional saying, but it's sometimes you have to make decisions by your gut. What is your gut telling you? I think we've all heard of that. Uh, is that saying now out the window? We don't have to deal with that anymore because we have artificial intelligence now. Is that the right way to go?
Yes, I mean, what is important, I really like this question because what is important to remark here is that machine learning or artificial intelligence are not taking the decision. This is when you point to the question, you said that artificial intelligence making decision and its lack of intuition and its lack of emotion. And here it is important to remark that artificial intelligence is not developed to work separately from humans. We use artificial intelligence to work parallelly with humans. We use to make mechanical processes and to analyze the data, the information we have, all the information we have, and we build knowledge based on that using artificial intelligence. That is the main goal of artificial intelligence, because many people believe that artificial intelligence, it's completely separate. It's something that is always going to damage people. We do not believe that. We create artificial intelligence as a complement of human intelligence, because we believe that machines have a potential to process information faster than humans, and that's a fact. So it is important to remark that artificial intelligence is not developed for a, a big a competence of humans. We use it as a tool, as a complementary tool for decision making. And here we have to say that uh, artificial intelligence is not completely taking all the decisions. If we give the autonomy to artificial intelligence to take all decisions, it will sure take them all. But if we use it as a as a daily life tool to estimate our decisions based on the data and the knowledge that we create from artificial intelligence, that is sure going to be giving us the best results. So it is like the knowledge we build from artificial intelligence, of course, lacks of intuition and emotion, but we as humans, at the end of the day, provide that intuition and that emotion. That is what we use artificial intelligence for.
Thank you. Dr. Ula?
Yeah, I would agree. Like, there are grave ethical concerns, especially because the artificial intelligence systems, at least at the moment, don't have any human emotions and feelings and that gut that we're talking about. So, like, the robots, the artificial intelligence system, they also become racist if you feed them that kind of data. And it also depends on the coders, the programmers who write the algorithms. So if you write a kind of an algorithm that makes the robot more racist, it can do that. And furthermore, depending on what kind of data you feed into it, like, why do we have this racism? Because some people are more racist because, like, they have been continuously bombarded with a specific kind of data and information. So that happens with the AI systems as well. Like the ethical concern, for example, if you talk about the drone that are being used for taking, especially like those militants, and especially they have been used in Afghanistan, you don't have a human being in there. All that decision is taken by the system, and they take picture, they take video, and the similarity is found. And if they find that the people resemble those kind of people that we want to target, they would indiscriminately attack. And there have been examples and instances, like, even though there have been cases in the US and in the UK on these drone attacks, that they have killed innocent people, women and children, in large amounts, because there wasn't a human being involved in that. If it was a human being, they wouldn't do that. Even if they're like, there's one terrorist, but there are 100 of other people, you wouldn't do that. But for the AI system, they just, like, take the data, and there's just one, and you just go for that. Further than that, there is a big problem for the privacy and surveillance. That's a grave ethical concern. We are being, by using that data, we're being, supervised and looked after, and they're keeping an eye on everybody. That may be used for different purposes. Even that same data can be used by the robbers. They can be used by the terrorists to do whatever they want to do. In addition to that data being used by the police for or benefit, in addition to that data being used by the companies for targeting the customers. So that privacy and surveillance is a big concern here. And that ultimately leads us to that, super intelligence, and everything being controlled by the robots, and like that is not happening in the near future. Probably that's not a possibility, but it may happen. Further than that, if the robots become so intelligent artificially that they feel that the robots themselves, they feel that they are like human beings, they will demand their own human robot rights. We would call them robo rights. So that's another issue. We have rights for them. But even there are some unintentional uses, unethical uses, and there are some intentional unethical uses. For example, the companies that are collecting your data, they intentionally use that data to increase their profitability. Like, for example, if you give your phone number, and the company is telling you, like, this phone number is being used for two-factor authentication. Well, it must be used only for that purpose. But what actually happens is that it is being used for other purposes. They are sending you messages. They are sending you more, spams and stuff like that. So that is another concern. And in the wake of all these concerns, we have these different regulations coming up. For example, in May 2018, we had this regulation in the EU, the General Data Protection Regulation. There was a big issue between the EU and Facebook regarding how they use the data. So that was a concern. We also have, like in 2020, we have this California Consumer Privacy Act. So when we have these ethical concerns, there are more regulations that are coming up, and so they're always going to be that ethical. But you know, when there are humans, there are ethical concerns. When they're robots, we will have more concerns because they lack the emotions.
Thank you for that. This is just a fascinating uh, conversation and topic that we're addressing. We're about to go to the audience questions. I know that Professor Hummel has been monitoring all of those questions. But before we go there, I know we have many students on the line from different universities throughout the world. And before we wrap up with the panel in this phase of the panel discussion, just my last question to you in this phase. Please share in one sentence the best advice that you can give to the audience, particularly any students here, on data science talent preparation and hiring. How should they be prepared to go into this field?
Well, I'm from the finance area, so I can give advice in that particular area. And as we can see, like, you know, the crux of the discussion here is that big data and artificial intelligence, they are there to stay, not just to stay, but to grow. And if we want to survive in the field, we have to adopt it. So, like, when I look at all these different positions announced in finance, even like the faculty positions, they ask for your expertise and your knowledge in fintech. So without fintech, you're going nowhere. That is the future. And you know, you can't have a big impact without being good in fintech, in data analytics, and data science, especially in the field of finance, if I would say.
Okay. Professor Fanegra, what say you?
I belong specifically to the artificial intelligence area, so I can give a more general advice for people trying to get into this world. And for data scientists, new data scientists are trying to belong to this area. The only thing that I can say is that passion is the engine of everything. In general way, you can, with passion you can achieve everything you can do. This is the first thing, but the second thing is that there are a lot of people as artificial intelligence is hitting a lot of areas nowadays. There are a lot of people there out there trying to make artificial intelligence. They are not experts on artificial intelligence, and the main advantage for new data scientists trying to get into this world is understanding really understanding the core of artificial intelligence, not only trying to replicate an algorithm or trying to get into coding or trying to get into specific things of artificial intelligence that are very easy to do nowadays, because all of the frameworks and all of the advances that has had artificial intelligence nowadays or during the recent years, but really understanding the core of artificial intelligence. There are several foundations and there are several basic concepts that you have to have in mind to really work in artificial intelligence, and that is going to make a huge difference. Me as a guy of artificial intelligence can tell you that. So for people trying to get into this world, that is my advice. Try to really get into this and get passionate for this.
Excellent advice indeed, particularly when we talk about passion. I don't care what it is that we do, but if you don't have the passion, it is difficult to convince someone that this is truly the field for you. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and co-moderator, Professor Sarah Hummel. Ms. Hummel, how are we doing out there in chat world?
It's been very interactive, a lot of questions. So I'm going to start with Dr. Kimball's question to all panelists. Do you feel classroom instruction in sync with artificial intelligence and big data? How should professors be teaching these topics?
So Dr. Galati, why don't you start, and then we'll go to Professor Fanegra, then Dr. Ula. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure, definitely. First of all, I would just want to add some points regarding like what as a student need to be done. Then I'll come to back question. If you allow me, can I answer that question?
Please do, of course.
Okay. I just want to tell you very, very basic things. I in my school level, I was on very average, and I still believe that I'm on average. As said by the panelists, you should be having a very open-minded in terms of the concept knowledge. If you really you need to care for it, you don't have to worry. I was having a difficulty in statistics or a mathematics kind of thing, but later on I realized that how we can implement in terms of uh, practical kind of things. You should be very practical nowadays. I think when we were as a student, I still remember internet was not so open, the laptops were not so open, the computer were not so open. But now I think in the entire world, we should thanks to the COVID pandemic that the entire world is now over online. A 17 years month old child and 85 years old, you know a person is on the internet, and actually they are studying. I'm talking about the education because I belong to the education only. So you should be having a passion and a dedication and a time to do the things. And I think that's not basically a rocket science that you cannot learn or you cannot have it. You should be having passion to do all the things in a very easy manner. And frankly speaking, for an AI based, let me come with an AI, artificial intelligence. I think you should be knowledge about the concept. You should be having a knowledge of statistics. And yes, mathematics is still applied for it. Apart from this advanced concept about the machine learning, deep learning, natural language processing, and the statistic concept like a time series forecasting, reinforcement learning. So that kind of things, you should be having a passion for doing the same, and it will be great honor, we're doing. And there is no basically limit to it. And nowadays, so many open source are available. I enroll n number of the courses, but I don't get time to do that thing because we are busy throughout the time. And after this pandemic, I think some of the professors are also there from university. I should be open to tell you that we are not having time for us to do our own learning. We should get a time. I'm already lacking on the time. If I get a time, I can work hard. So right now, as a student, you have a time, you have a dedication obviously you required from your end, and the focus you required for it. So that's answer for the previous one. So
thank you.
Sarah, yeah, I'm sorry.
Can you just repeat the question from Dr. Kimball, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry at this. Yeah, please, if you can.
Yes. So Dr. Kimball's question says, do you feel that classroom instruction in sync with AI, with the big data? How should professors be teaching these topics?
Okay. See, the first, I'm sorry, lot of sound is coming from it. I'm really, sincerely apologize. So regarding this, you should be having a blended kind of a teaching. The first thing and the most important thing as a professor, you always has to think that what kind of interest of student you are having according to your course. Let's say you have been given as a course as an AI, what practicality you can do. You will not believe, around few years back, I never know a word called Raspberry Pi. I think most of here I can see professors are there, students are there, they know about Raspberry Pi is there. And frankly speaking, once I've used that thing, it has to link with by smart cities. Right now we are talking about, I am from New Delhi, the capital of India. And it's around 4 or 5 years back, we are working on the smart cities, and obviously automation kind of things are working. So I have taught them how Raspberry Pi can be developed, can be processed, can be working on that thing. I've tried to install that OS. I've tried to give them that hands-on session, that how actually it works, how kind of things that we are having on it. So that kind of a technology, the student should develop the interest. As a professor, we are only to facilitate the students. We are not here to give them from A to Z, like primary school we have it. They should have an interest. And I should be very open in the open forum here that the student do their best, because they will be doing the corporate kind of thing. We are here to facilitate the things. They have the knowledge, they have the dedication kind of thing. So you should be having more practical knowledge. I think more case study, more research paper, more kind of things which can help you to do in these kind of a teaching, and they should have an interest. And not only those things, they should have a faith on you. A student is only good. We should not get a good feedback on the student should only good that he is faith, he should have interest, and we should be able to give them that what kind of a problem we are having, we should solve. We don't have the exact resolution for them, but we can always give them a channel that how to do.
Thank you so much. And we're going to speed it up a little bit as my provost always tells me, brevity is what we're going to have to address so we can get through some of the outstanding questions that we have. So Professor Fanegra, will you have a response to that, please, as well? Please.
Yes, I have a pretty short response, in fact. As I mentioned previously, I am from the area of artificial intelligence. I have the opportunity, in particular, in my experience, I have the opportunity to teach students at different levels, undergraduate and graduate students, and from different areas, from financial areas, from software areas, from telecommunications. I had the opportunity to teach in different areas. And I think the important thing when teaching artificial intelligence is the goal of what you're aiming to do. For example, if you're orienting an artificial intelligence course, I think that the most fundamental things must be the foundation or the basics. But if you are in a big data or in a smart industries course, you have to change the focus and change the subject and pointing on that direction. So I think that is the most important thing. It mostly depends on the area that you're trying to focus on, and it is not a kind of the it is not like trying to some to orient some things or some rules based on one thing only. So I think that is the key. That is the most important thing.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Ulo, we're going to keep it going. So if you could hold on, we're going to go to the next question and then we'll start with you. Professor Humble,
Okay,
what do you have?
next question is from Dean Hood. What do you see as a turning point in the next year for AI and big data based on current pandemic impacting the world?
Dr. Ulo, why don't you start with that?
I think that would be a question that Dr. Gulati can answer more appropriately.
Okay, sure. Why don't we go with Dr. Gulati?
He's in the area.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. To answer this question, I should be very straightforward. We don't know what will happen in the future. Like, for example, no one was ready that it will be a lockdown for entire world. Nobody has thought in our dreams that around 3 months, 4 months, 8 months, now 9 months, we are at home. And frankly speaking, in my entire life, I have never thought that I'll be working from home. As an academician in India, especially, they say that you have to come in and go out because they believe that if you're in office, you work efficient, effective, and more kind of good kind of things. But yes, the pandemic has teach us, we know the value of our O's now. Frankly speaking, we know the value. So like the future, if we talk about AI in the COVID, as I was giving an example of an robot dogs, and also not only things saying, let me give you an overview of an data. The data, whatever has been generated entirely before 2020, it has been become more 33% more. The people have been using more data, whether it will be forcefully or not forcefully, we are more dependent on data, and data plays an important. As I said, that data is an oil. You also have to remember very well important in your entirely whatever you do, on internet, whether it's your phone, whether it's your any application XYZ, you should be very focused. You should not give any comment which is wrong. Right now, let me give you some example what is happening. I don't know whether you know it or not. Let me give you some example. In India, the protest is going on for villagers. The agriculture land. They have the government has changed some forms. Let me give you a very basic kind of thing. I don't want to go into deeper than thing. Like what was the selling price they were giving? They were not getting that price. Because of that thing, the farmers are dying and the land is going. But you know, the government is doing good. I don't know whether it's doing or bad, but agriculture on AI is working very hard. Any expectation in 2050? What kind of how much the population will grow? It's more over 60% more white right now we are having. The demand would be 60% more. So on the same land, and land is becoming squeeze. The population grows, the land goes squeeze. So how to grow that kind of the crop or the food we required? So I'm just giving on agriculture. I was working for a very small project on agriculture, that on the same land, how we can grow more vegetable which is more fertile, which is on the less timely, and which is organic also. So that kind of things are there, and yes, the future is very bright, and it will be very extensive for everyone, and it will be very happily kind of things. Although I think here in this panel, or in this the attendees, I think since morning we wake up, and since the night we go to the sleep, let me know how many times you are not interactive in the internet. Let me know in terms of minute. I think we interact by 24/7. If the internet goes off, our life goes off. Frankly speaking, for me, we forget to do basic things in the morning. But again, those kind of things are very important. So the AI is open for everything, and data
Thank
science,
you.
machine learning, big data. Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Professor Hummel, what do you have? And we're
Next
going to move
question.
rapidly now. So just to put my panel members on warning. Okay, go
So
ahead.
next question comes from Professor Malinowski. Can existing computer legacy systems be modernized to adapt to artificial intelligence and deep machine learning?
Wow, Professor Fanegra, why don't you start with this one?
Yes, I think that artificial intelligence has changed all over the world, including that. For example, we can see the development of so in several years before, in almost a decade. The way we do artificial intelligence was, for example, not depending exactly on the processing capabilities, for example. But during recent years, we have found that we need a strong processing muscle to develop some sort of artificial intelligence. And this has led, for example, enterprise such NVIDIA to develop high performance processors such as GPUs. In fact, they have developed a completely novel computing architecture called tensor processing units to specifically do artificial intelligence. Those processors have been developed specifically for that, and they have its main feature is that they are very small. They are as small that they can be implemented in embedded systems. So it can take us, for example, into the world of smart cities in which we can implement easy and small processors for real life applications, for real life and real time processing applications. So artificial intelligence has changed all these things. And yes, of course, we have to change, and during the next years, couple years, maybe those enterprises, those industrial sectors have to develop more advanced processing techniques or architectures to continue advancing for developing artificial intelligence. Nowadays, the actual systems may have, or maybe it's difficult to change them. For example, if you're asking if we can change or adapt my machine to work for artificial intelligence, that might be hard because it strictly depends on physical on physical characteristics or features. But definitely, the industry will continue creating novel things and adapting for developing more advanced artificial intelligence techniques.
Thank you, Professor. Uh, Professor Hummel, what do you have?
I have another question from Dr. Jim Savard. He said, I believe AI presents three major areas of ethical concern for society: privacy and surveillance, bias and discrimination, and perhaps the deepest, most difficult philosophical question of the era, the role of human judgment. Do the
Please go
panel
ahead,
members
sir.
feel there is a requirement to offer ethical courses predicated on these major areas of societal ethical concerns?
Dr. Ula.
Yeah, definitely. That's a question for me, and yeah, well, ethics is also one of my areas. I have written some papers on corporate social responsibility, and so that involves the ethical concerns. Of course, there's no doubt. I would say yes. And how are we adopting to that? I mean, more ethical concerns. We need more education on how to be ethical. It's for everyone. We can start it from our families right away. From our children, we should teach them how to use others' data and others' information more ethically. But in addition to that, I mean, like at a university level, we can definitely have courses. We already have, like, courses in ethics, like there are code of conduct for doctors, for lawyers, for all those key professions. But now it is for everyone. I was looking at Georgetown University the other day. I did some doctoral thesis supervision over there. So yeah, they were looking for a professor in ethics in particularly. So I think ethics is going to be a whole new area in the future. So of course, if you are interested in the area, just jump in and start developing the courses.
Thank you for that. Professor Hummel, what say you?
Um, I think it's important for try to engage our students in many different areas, including ethics, because ethics come in our lives every day. We need to be aware of ethics. We need to know what to do, what not to do, especially when we teaching to students.
It's all
And
about it. We can't get away from ethics, regardless of what the
yes,
process
It's
is.
it's
Absolutely,
everywhere. It's everywhere.
it's
But the
everywhere.
need is growing.
Yes, yes, yes. What other questions do we have?
I don't have any other questions. I just put
Okay.
the link here about smart city groups because our University of Potomac's been part of a smart cities group in Washington D.C. We've been partnered 2 years. We do have um, mm, smart city groups. We do host the smart city groups member meetings. They have about 200 members in the Washington D.C. area. We did before before the COVID-19. We used to host their monthly meetings in our campus. We used to participate there in events. So I invite you to check out the website, and we have some professors implemented this smart cities concept and AI concept into our curriculum. We have very rich program.
Thank you so much for adding that, Professor Humble. We are about to wrap up, but before we do, it would be my pleasure and privilege if our University of the Potomac Provost and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Tony Johnson would say a few words before we end. Dr. Johnson?
Okay. Thank you so much, Dean Smith. I appreciate it. Good morning slash good afternoon, depending on what part of the world everybody's located in. Thank you
Good
so
morning.
very much for this wonderful presentation on artificial intelligence. I think it was very enriching as we discussed the topic. We talked about privacy concerns. We also talked about the future of artificial intelligence, and I think it's very, very exciting. I hope this is the beginning of a series of engagements that we have on this very important topic. I want to definitely thank Dr. Eula, Dr. Galati, and Dr. Fanegra for your amazing contributions to the discussion today. I think we all walked away feeling, I won't say that we feel like we're experts in AI, but I know we've learned so much more through this presentation that we didn't know before. So thank you so very much for that. So on behalf of Dr. Clinton Gardner, our president of the University of Potomac, the Board of Trustees and executive team, we are eternally grateful for you spending this time with us this morning. Thank you so much, and we look forward to talking to you all again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Dr.
Dr.
Johnson.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
I'm very sorry. There's one more question left. Professor Panegra pointed out. He said he would like to answer.
Well, go right ahead, Professor Fanegra. What's the question? Professor Hubbard, why don't you read the question? And I think I'm going to choose Professor Fanegra to answer it.
This is the question from Professor Nitin. She would like to ask her question. It's not in the chat box.
Oh, please take your phone off mute and ask your question. Absolutely.
If you allow, I can read the question. He is a colleague at my university. I invited to attend him here.
Yes,
Oh, thank you.
yes,
I'm
please
sorry.
do that,
I
sir.
don't have it on my window. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can. I can
Please
read
go
the
ahead,
question.
sir.
Yeah, he is asking, can AI reach to level when it can mimic the consciousnesses, the basic human feature?
Hey, Professor Fanegra.
Yes, this is a very interesting question, and I wanted to ask, I wanted to respond because I think, as I mentioned previously, it is aligned with the thinking of artificial intelligence controlling the world and taking us all down. And I think that nowadays, no, we are very far from that point. Why? Because when we talk about artificial intelligence, there is a word, a very important word called intelligence. And we first need to define intelligence to make artificial intelligence. And for defining intelligence, we need to address to the main, to the center of intelligence of humans, which is the brain. When we talk about the brain, we study the brain, we try to mimic the behavior of the brain in a machine. What happens with consciousness or with our conscious mind that we cannot define until now? We cannot define conscious mind. We cannot say that conscious is a portion of tissue. We cannot say that is a specific region of the brain. We cannot say that it's a connection of neurons. We cannot say that. We do not know what conscious is in the human brain. So when we are talking about artificial intelligence, remember, we say that we transfer or we mimic the behavior of a brain into a machine. So when we address the conscious mind, the consciousness, we do not know what consciousness is. So we cannot replicate that behavior into a machine. That is very important. It is very important to understand. Maybe in the future, in the next decades or in the next years, maybe we can clearly define what the consciousness in humans is, and then when we can define that, we can replicate or try to replicate that behavior into a machine. But until now, we cannot do that. That is the answer to the question.
Thank you, Professor Fanegra. And now I understand what you meant when you said you have to bring passion to the profession, because that was the most passionate response to that particular type of question that I've heard in quite a while. Hey, we're going to wrap up. I want to
I'm sorry,
echo.
there is
Oh,
two more questions, I think.
well, I think we're
First,
gonna have to hold off on
oh,
those
okay,
questions, Professor Humble, because
okay.
our time is at that point. But I want to echo my provost, Dr. Johnson, in thanking this panel, Professor Fanegra down in Columbia, Dr. Ula, Dr. Galati, just an outstanding job. And I really appreciate your support and thoughtfulness and intelligence to the topic. Is there much more to come in this science, artificial intelligence, and big data? It appears that we haven't even touched the surface. So, as Dr. Johnson said, maybe we'll need to have more of these discussions along the way. I also want to thank all of you in the virtual audience for your participation. If you are interested in viewing this panel discussion, we will be posting it on our University of Potomac Facebook page in the very near future. So with that, I again thank you. Please stay safe and continue to social distance. We are adjourned. Thank you.